guys, welcome back. Today I am thrilled to finally film my Q&A that I'm doing to celebrate reaching 400 subscribers in 2020. I've compiled the questions that I got from you guys and I'll answer them the best as I can. I'm kind of excited about it. I didn't really prepare the answers or anything. I just kind of copy-pasted the questions that you asked, and so I'm gonna always look down on this sheet of paper. And yes, thank you so much for asking questions, and I hope it's going to be enjoyable to listen to the answers. And if you have more questions after this video, of course, you can drop them in the comment section. So yeah, let's just jump in and start with the first one. I didn't put them in any order. It's just going to be very random and chill and probably kind of unedited. So, you know, get a cup of tea or a coffee or start doing your dishes, because that's often what I do while I watch BookTube. And let's go. So first, Coffee and Copyrights asks, if you could read one book over and over for a year, no exceptions, what book would it be and why? My first thought would be something that I know is comforting to me and that I would enjoy in any circumstance. That would probably be some Agatha Christie book. But now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like if I could only read one book, I would like to read a book that has some kind of variety to it. So maybe a short story collection that has several stories that, you know, you can read bit by bit. Maybe some that are quite distinct. And you can read them in little bits and think about the stories, maybe even, you know, make up the rest of the story, because often short story collections have these stories that feel, if you're used to novels, they feel kind of unfinished. And that's something that in the beginning kind of frustrated me about short story collections, but now I'm getting to really enjoy it because I feel like I think more about the story after I read it. So maybe something like The Thing Around Your Neck by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, which has such a nice variety of stories and a lot to think about. And maybe Stone Mattress and Other Stories by Margaret Atwood, which I also really enjoyed for that same reason. All the stories are so different, but they kind of have this same underlying theme. I realize I should probably do a video about short story collections, but we'll see that. And then she also asked, what do you most often recommend when people ask for a book recommendation? I mean, obviously I would probably tailor my recommendation to certain people, but I feel like the book I've been recommending most in general is The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. Just because I think, I don't know, it should be for everyone. It is for everyone. It's just a story of human nature and life, and I don't know. I think it's a fantastic book. All right, so Svea Scheike asked, what is a book you love that might surprise people? I mean, it depends what surprises you in literature, right? But I think a book that would surprise people, because maybe they might have some idea about it and maybe feel like it would be something old-fashioned, but I thought it was definitely not, is The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. This book blew my mind in terms of what H.G. Wells kind of thought about what the future would be, and how he was right on some very distinct things in terms of how humans react in a situation of threat. And there's so many parallels of, you know, what has happened since he wrote that book, where you could be like, yep, that's a possibility. It's maybe also even happened before. And I think maybe a preconception that people could have about The War of the Worlds is that because it was written in like in the 1890s, that it's very old-fashioned writing, and I think it's absolutely not. And that's also something that really surprised me. It's really easy to read and very compelling. And then she also asked, also, what is your favorite type of video to film and watch? Okay, so I think the videos I enjoy filming the most are, first of all, rambly videos like this, because I don't have to check myself so much on how I talk, and I don't necessarily repeat a sentence just because I've pronounced the word really weirdly in English, which happens all the time. But in terms of content, I think the ones that I like most are the ones where it's really kind of an original idea from me, and it's a theme or a topic, something I want to talk about, and then I really prepare it a lot. Like, I read a lot, I partly script it, or at least have like bullet points, and that's sometimes the videos that I put in the Christie series. It's, yeah, mostly the videos that maybe don't interest so many people that watch my channel, but it's the ones that I really enjoy the preparation of it, and then having like this kind of research ending up in this video form, and that's really satisfying to me. And the videos I like to watch, I don't know, there's so many. I mean, there's a reason why I'm on BookTube and I watch BookTube videos. I like a lot about what the community is bringing out. I just like hearing what people are reading. So things like recent reads, wrap-ups are probably my favorite videos, because I don't know, that's why I came to this community, because I want to hear people talking about books that they enjoy, and that's the videos I like. Lana asks, I'd like to know if there are any French authors you'd recommend. I've read some French classics and modern classics so far, like Voltaire, Zola, Sartre, Stendhal. Are there any contemporary French authors you'd like everyone to read? So firstly, French authors I would recommend. The first one that comes to mind, and that is one that I want to explore more as well, and that maybe amongst all these classic male French authors like Zola and Stendhal, is maybe overlooked, is Colette. So I would recommend checking out Colette. I think you might enjoy her. And in terms of contemporary French lit, I have mentioned this before, I think, is that it's not really something I follow. I don't find myself in this kind of literature that's coming out these days. I'm also not researching it a lot, if I'm perfectly honest. I might stumble on some, maybe also through what my mom is reading. She might be recommending stuff to me. But I think one author that is kind of contemporary is Maylis de Kerangal, and I absolutely loved her book The Heart, Réparer les vivants. So yeah, this is one I would definitely recommend. Gunpowder, Fiction and Plot ask, I'd like to ask the very important question, can I see a ScoobyDoo on your bookcase? Yes. Where is it? So my husband got me this Playmobil set of ScoobyDoo, and I think Shaggy is up somewhere here. And I could put it back correctly, and there's a ghost here as well, and that's part of the set. I'm not really one for trinkets, but this is really fun. I think it fits really well on the shelf, and yeah, probably ScoobyDoo is the first thing that came close to something like mysteries in media. I probably consumed first as a kid. Like, it was a series I watched on TV and still kind of love it. It's still kind of ridiculous, and when you reach a point where you've read a lot of mysteries, they're kind of predictable, but I still kind of love them. So that's like my attachment to ScoobyDoo. And in general, I'm kind of I really like Playmobil. always since a kid, so this was kind of a perfect combination of two things I really like. And And then they also asked, what's the breakdown of languages you read? So I can tell you for 2020, and it was 70% I read in English, 20% I read in French, and 10% in German, roughly. And this is, or was definitely a year where I really made it a point to read more in French. So I think last year it was more like 85% I read in English, but now it's about 70%. I'm quite happy with that number. I think it's quite good. I still really enjoy reading in English. That's why I film my videos in English. That's why I interact with the English-speaking community of BookTube. But yeah, I'm also happy I read more French this year. Darling Desi asked, what are your top 5 favorite classics? And where is your favorite place to read? So yeah, you know, obviously this is kind of difficult, but probably up in the top 5 up there would be The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. There would be L'Assommoir by Émile Zola. I also really love The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Brontë. What else? Maybe a few German ones. I really enjoyed the horror novella Der Sandmann by E.T.A. Hoffmann from the 19th century, which is amazing. What else? I don't know. That's the 4 that come to mind. Which is a good mix, I think, of French, English, and German. And she also asked, what is your favorite place to read? In bed. And probably best is just not having any sounds at all. I find it really difficult, for example, to be in the living room and reading something while, you know, there's a movie going or some YouTube videos, because I'm such a visual person. I get distracted by like the screen and what's happening on it. So best is probably just lying in bed with no sounds. Bugsby asked, how long did it take you to get comfortable talking to the camera? A long time. I haven't really watched my really early videos. I don't really want to, honestly. I think I am kind of introverted, so it was already really weird. And my first ever video that was never published on this channel was so incredibly awkward. I started filming this video on a whim. It was a time where I was feeling frustrated about a lot of things, and I just took some camera and started talking, and I talked about 5 books that made a big impact on me, and that's kind of a video idea that I still have on my list, and I probably will refilm this video at some point. But watching back this video it's kind of hard to watch. Like, I didn't know at all what I was doing. I didn't know how to talk. I struggled with being rambly, and I think I still kind of am, and that's why some of my videos are quite strongly edited, because it annoys me when I listen back to it. But I think it's something that really comes with practice. There's just no way around it. All right, Mary Tumulty asks 2 questions. First, since you have read quite a few Agatha Christie mysteries at this point, please recommend a few you found particularly engaging, not including And Then There Were None, you know me well, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, and Murder on the Orient Express. So one that I feel like I should advertise more is 5 Little Pigs. It's quite an unusual book within Christie's oeuvre. It doesn't have this big cast of characters. It's basically just 5 characters and Hercule Poirot. And it's a lot more psychological than a lot of her books, because she's really able to focus on the psychology of these specific 5 people. And I think it's one of these books by her that doesn't get enough credit. So check this one out. And then maybe one that is probably not on many people's radar is the short story collection by her, and that's called While the Light Lasts. And it's kind of an odd collection. It's I think, as far as I remember, a mishmash in terms of chronology of when she wrote these stories. There's some early ones from her, there's some really late ones from late in her career. And they're all kind of weird and strange, and in some ways, a lot of them are still mysteries, but there's also a hint of supernatural, or as far as I remember at least. There's one that I found very good that is called A Dream, and it really reminded me of Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, for a reason I'm not going to say, but if you've read Rebecca, you might know what I'm hinting at, especially if it's called A Dream. So yeah, that's maybe one that is not well known. I mean, it's a short story collection. I guess they are also not so much, I think, talked about when we talk about Agatha Christie, and her Miss Marple short story collection, The 13 Problems, is super, super good as well. The second question is, has your knowledge of chemistry helped you solve any of Christie's mysteries too early in the story? Honestly, no, I don't think so. Like, when they talk about what chemical it could be, I know what they mean. And I usually also know what effect it has on the body. So maybe one where I kind of got the hint quite early is probably in The Pale Horse. Well, this is maybe going to be spoilery, but in The Pale Horse, there is something you see from the victim's body that, knowing what effect certain chemicals have on a body, you kind of get the hint. So that was one where at least I could see what is the murder weapon or the murder chemical. But other than that, I don't think I am. But I think I'm also using another part of my brain when I'm reading Agatha Christie. I'm not necessarily switching on my scientific analytical brain because I'm reading them for enjoyment. So yeah, I don't think stuff that I've learned at university has kind of ruined the plot for me or ruined the deduction, which is good. Morgan Kraut asks, I would like to know what you're doing, as in, have you found a job or else, and if so, where? So yeah, so as I've mentioned, I think in my previous video, I started a job middle of January. I'm still in the southwest of Germany, and yeah, I've started a job in a company that's producing diagnostic tests for different diseases and stuff. Yeah, and I'm really enjoying it. Then I have a question from Laura Reads Pages. I remember you mentioning that you're a graduate student. I'm curious to know about your research interests. So, yes, I was a grad student until the end of 2019. I majored in biochemistry, so I was kind of researching the function of specific transport proteins. And yeah, so I studied chemistry and then specialized in biochemistry. Then she also asks, I'd also love to know about reading in different languages. Have you always read in English, French, and German? If not, what made you start picking up books of different languages? So, I've mentioned this before. I grew up learning French and German pretty much alongside each other. And in the schools I went to, I had, courses in both languages. So I also did French lit and German lit. When I was younger, I mostly read in French, and that's mostly because I got my books from my library and they were in French. But I started reading more German when going to school and starting to read also more German classics for school. And then I started reading English last, and that was probably, around my teenage years, where I discovered Jane Austen and read her in English. I think it was a suggestion from a teacher when I asked what I could start reading like in original language, and she suggested Jane Austen, and in the beginning it was difficult to get around this very specific language from that time, but at the same time it really pushed me into that direction, because then I wasn't afraid anymore of like English classics, and so from them I continued reading in English, and yeah, haven't really stopped since. Then I stopped reading for quite a long time during my studies, and I was reading a lot English in terms of like scientific papers in English. So that was why, when getting back into reading a few years ago, I started again reading mostly English first, and now I'm slowly getting back to upping a bit what I'm reading in French and in German, because I feel like I've kind of lost it, which is a pity. So yeah, that's the kind of weird language reading journey. The Hungry Bookworm asks, are you still sewing? And if so, what was the last thing you made? Also, I cannot see Magpie Murders on your shelf anymore. Have you read it? So yes, I am currently reading The Magpie Murders. At last, Julie, I'm reading it, thank God. But yeah, so I've mentioned in the last video, I haven't been reading a lot between Christmas and now the start of a new year. I also haven't been sewing a lot, but I have been sewing the weekend that I'm filming this. And I have been sewing before Christmas. I think the last time I talked about what I was sewing was probably middle of last year, so I have sewn a few things since then. I've sewn a wool skirt for winter, which I'm wearing all the time. It's this wool synthetic blend, and it has this really nice purple color, and it's just a simple circle skirt, which is so easy to make, and I love it. And I'm actually working on making an exact copy of it, because I noticed I'm wearing it all the time, in a green wool blend fabric. Connor Stompanado asks, are you French or German? Because I actually don't know. I am technically French. I have a French passport. I have French nationality. I am, however, from a region that is at the border of Germany. So I'm from eastern France, where, yeah, as I said, you can learn German very early on, because it's just like a cultural thing from our region, because throughout history and the ages, our region has really been shifting between France and Germany. So yeah, that's probably where the confusion comes from. And the thing is also, since I learned both these languages so early, people don't hear an accent, like they don't hear a French accent when I speak German. So they just assume I'm German. And yeah, it's all very confusing, but so I see why it would be confusing. The other thing is, like, nationality is a very weird concept, is it not? And it's obviously something, like, as a person from Alsace, that I think about a lot, and as a person who grew up in France and is living in Germany, I think about a lot as well. And I don't really agree with a lot, to be honest. Like, basically I don't like being put in boxes, but it's still a really interesting thing to think about. Then he asks, what country's literature have you not yet explored but want to? Probably Japan. I've been kind of getting into more and more into this culture, actually pretty much since I met my husband, because he's a huge Japan fan and he's been there for a few months and has always loved the culture and the literature and like all the entertainment stuff that's from there. So I've kind of been dipping my toes into it, and one thing that I would really like to explore a bit is mystery in Japanese culture. Then Danny from Current Chapter asks, when you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up? I wanted to be a teacher, like a lot of bookish people. I wanted to be a language teacher. And then she also asks, what languages would you want to learn if you had all the time in the world? all the languages doesn't count. No, I wouldn't want to learn all the languages. That seems like a lot of work. I don't know, to be honest. There's so many languages that are really interesting, but I've never felt the urge to learn more for some reason. Probably something unusual like Finnish or Hungarian, just to see how this language is constructed. And one of the languages that fascinates me a lot that I would like to know more about is Irish or Scottish Gaelic. That would be really cool. Yeah, that's pretty much what comes to mind now. And then finally from Sophie Politin, a few questions. Do you plan to build your career in research and or academia? No. I've actually made a video about tips and like advice I wish I'd gotten about a PhD. I've made this video quite a while ago now, and obviously it has nothing to do with my bookish content, so I don't think it was watched a lot, but in this video I talk a bit in a kind of unfiltered way about it's pretty much how I felt after finishing a PhD. And in many ways, I've realized quite quickly that academia is definitely not something for me. I still do enjoy like researching new ways of doing things, researching new things that haven't been found out yet, but I don't want to do that in an academic setting. I think I've seen most of what academia has and is, and I've seen some of its ugly parts, and I just know as a person it's not a place for me. So at least not for a career. Do you prefer to spend your time reading or playing board games? Well, it depends, right? But honestly, especially in 2020 and now in the beginning of the year where I basically haven't been reading, I've been playing a lot more board games, and I think a big part of that is because I kind of felt like, because I felt so isolated because of the pandemic, I felt like I needed this connection. So even now when we have lockdown in Germany, we're playing with friends on Tabletop Simulator, and it's really a way to connect. So I've been feeling like this is something that I'm missing in my free time, and that's maybe why I'm reading less and playing more board games. So I would say, honestly, like in the last half a year or so, it's probably that I would prefer playing board games, which, shock and horror, right? I have this booktube channel. I read a bit of horror. I tend to like horror in classics more. So I really like Edgar Allan Poe, and as I said, E.T.A. Hoffmann. But I still I'm very, very much looking forward to reading Shirley Jackson. Yeah, Bildungsroman. For me, it kind of relates directly to typical Bildungsromane in old German lit, and it's often like rich white men. So don't think I'm really interested in that kind of thing. It's been done a lot. And romance. So yeah, also linking back to genres I never read. I read romance books when I was a teenager a lot, and haven't done so since. It's not something I reach to. I don't feel like it's something I need or I want, but you know, that might change. But this is definitely one of the genres that I don't really pick up, to be honest. Do you have any thought about the reduced presence of men in the booktube community? I don't agree they're not there, but they're definitely a minority, and it might be linked to the public of booktube in general, like who is watching booktube. And I'm actually always really interested when booktubers show their viewing statistics, and I have never watched a video like that and not seen basically 80%, but you know, it seems to be a very feminine space, and while I don't agree that literature is a feminine space, I don't think it is at all, especially when going higher up in hierarchies and in editing and publishing houses. I don't know, I think BookTube is kind of quite a safe space for women on the internet, on YouTube. And I'm just saying this like as a white female. I can only speak for that. And that's maybe something that attracts women to this community. And I can totally understand why. But I also think there's so many booktubers that are not female and that are great. And yeah, you just have to search for them. It's like any community, like you can find different and various and differentiated voices for all kinds of people. You just have to look for them. Final question, any chance to see you in a video speaking French? I don't know. Does that even make sense? Like, I mean, I could imagine filming a video about a French book in French, but since, like I said, about 70% of the books I'm reading are in English, I don't know. I don't see it. But the thing is, and the reason why I started filming in English at all is just because I want to reach more people and I want to interact with more people. And, you know, English is that language in the world, how it is today. So the language in which I make my videos are like, I've chosen it because it's kind of a common ground and it's something where I can interact with as many people as I can. Alright, this was probably a long video. I don't know how I'm going to cut it and edit it, probably not that much. But yeah, thank you so much for all the questions that you sent in. I hope I could answer them in the way you expected, maybe in some ways that you didn't expect. In any case, I hope you enjoyed the video. And yeah, I would just want to say thank you again for everyone who's watching my videos, who's giving the videos a thumbs up, who's interacting with me in the comments. That's the only reason why I'm doing this, is this community and this discussion. And it's a lot of fun. So I really appreciate you guys. And yeah, that's it for today. I hope that until next time we talk again, you're reading great books. And I'll see you in my next one. Bye!